You're listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast, where I give you insight, awareness, and enlightenment about your parenting and your relationship with your kids. In today's episode, I am talking through a concept that I think is going to really change and revolutionize the way that we view children, and that is how few things over which children have control. Now, that may seem like something that we've talked about before because we have. However, what's interesting is it's not just that kids really don't have a lot of control. It's what they do as a result of their lack of control. And this is what ends up putting children in a dysregulated state. This is what ends up putting children in a power-hungry state. And then we end up with a lot of difficult behavior and a lot of defiance and refusal, but I think often the root is missed. So we're continuing in the Parent Companion series, and this is specifically why a child is going to fight in certain areas of their lives. And it almost always comes back to lack of control. So let's dive in. I think this is actually going to be really helpful. One of the most consistent things that parents report when they come in and meet with us as child-centered play therapists is what they often don't realize are power struggles. But if you filter everything down to one root cause, what parents describe is going on is because of power struggles. In other words, parent says, kid will not listen. Kid will not eat anything except chicken nuggets and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Child will not toilet train. Child is refusing to get on the bus and we're late every single morning. Child will not sleep in their own bed. Child will not get along well with other children at school. And this often feels very isolated and distinct as a parent is discussing the frustrations. We have school issues. We have bedtime issues. We have getting ready in the morning issues. We have eating issues. We have bathroom issues. But really, at the heart of all of it is control. And when you realize that kids only have control over so many things, you can filter much of the behavior that is difficult and frustrating into a power grab. So over which things do children have control? The list is very short. You can fit it on one hand. First, toileting. A child is going to withhold. A child is going to release. A child is going to refuse to use the toilet. A child is going to hide and poop in the bedroom under the table. A child is going to insist on pull-ups. A child is going, the list goes on as far as toileting goes. Why? Because that is something over which they have control to a degree. I mean, obviously at some point bodily functions take over and the body has to purge waste. But generally speaking, there is a sense of I get to decide what happens with my body. So I will let it all go and not care. I will hold it in and not care. And then obviously there are consequences of those decisions, but toileting, one of the major things over which a child has control. Second, sleeping. So falling asleep, staying asleep, where they sleep, when they sleep, what conditions they require for sleep. Why? Because something over which they have control. And keep in mind, especially for anxious kids, everything feels worse at night. So often sleeping issues originate with anxiety, but then it becomes a control grab because anxious kids hate the feeling of vulnerability and fear, so they try to control the circumstances so they can alleviate some of that fear. So I feel scared when I'm in a room by myself, so I'm going to refuse to stay in the room by myself. That's a control grab, but rooted in anxiety. They often go together for sleeping. So you have a child that has these parameters under which they will sleep, and it seems like they're just being defiant or difficult or disobedient or whatever. It's actually control to mitigate the anxiety. Third option is eating. So a child will refuse to eat most things, all but one or two things. They will hoard food. They will hide food. They will gorge themselves on food. They will refuse to eat, period. They will insist that everything has to be cut into bite-sized pieces for them, and the crust will not be on their peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and they will not eat vegetables, and the list goes on and on. And we see this as frustrating, but again, another measure of control. It's really difficult to force feed a child. So something over which they have largely complete control. And when you hear parents say, quote, picky eaters, it's control. Fourth, talking. So a child will refuse to talk altogether. A child will refuse to talk in certain situations with certain people. A child will talk too much and they will yell and scream all the time. Why? Something over which they have control. Now, when a child refuses to talk, in certain scenarios or across the board, selective mutism is its own separate thing, but again, rooted in anxiety. And control is the antidote to anxiety for children. So they will decide when they're going to talk and how they're going to talk and under what circumstances they will talk. And then fifth, obedience. So they can choose to comply or they can choose not to. They can choose to do what you ask, or they can choose not to. They can choose to stop what they're doing, or they can choose not to. They can choose to get in bed, or they can choose not to. And the sense of someone has asked me or told me to do something, that is putting you in a position of power as the parent. And we just discussed kids only have control over a few things. So therefore, I don't want someone else to have power over me. So I'm going to refuse because now I have a sense of power and control. Those are the 5 most consistent things over which children have control. And as I said, they fit on one hand. So think about the nature of a child's life. They're told where to go, when to go, how to go, why to go, all day, every day, from everyone in their life. And there comes a point when a child is like, I really would like a say. I really would like a voice. I really would like to have some control. And they will grasp it. Any measure of power and control that they can take, they will. And they have a limited set of options, as we just discussed. But we need to start seeing things in terms of, this is my child just wanting some control. We all want control. We all want to have some power. We all want say. We all want to be able to make decisions for ourselves. This is not a strange scenario, but we treat children as if they shouldn't fight for control and power. And they're wired to do so. Some kids more than others, of course, but it makes sense that a child's going to say, if I only have control over a handful of things, I'm going to take control. And then we have toileting, sleeping, eating, talking, and obeying issues. So hopefully this gives some insight and perspective. That's one of the goals of this podcast, is insight and awareness and perspective about your children. And it's easy to see behavior as distinct and separate and irritating. My kid X and Y and Z, and then we wrap and we go to A and B. And we see this as one frustration and annoyance after another. But one of the things that CCPTs are prone to do is to take what is being shared with us and filter. So when all of these complaints are raised in our initial parent meeting, we're able to say, well, it all really stems from the same thing. And that in and of itself can help you adjust the way that you're going to respond. Once you have a sense, you can't unknow what you know. So once you have a sense of what's going on with your child, oh, this is a power grab. Okay, here's another power grab. Oh, all right, this kid really just wants power right now. It will absolutely transform the way that you interact because you will start to give more empowerment choices. You will start to make it clear that the child does have control in small things, in their lives. And you will respond differently when you realize that the child is in the middle of a power grab. Maybe it's because there's too much dictatorial authority being expressed. Maybe because the child is really emotional right now. Maybe because the child is really fearful right now. And then all of a sudden, you start to accommodate the need while still obviously setting limits when needed and addressing things as they need to be. But we now have a different perspective on the behavior. So my hope is that that is encouraging to you. It gives you some insight so that you can really interact in more enhancing ways with your children. We're all about relationship. We talk about this all the time. And fractures in relationship almost always stem from power and control on one side or the other. And so if we can recognize the power and control need, then we can respond accordingly and preserve relationship with our kids. So this is universal, whether or not you're pursuing play therapy or not. This really is the sense of why children behave the way that they do. And so my hope is that it encourages you to have better depth of understanding and adjust and interact in different ways with your kids. So if you would like to reach out to me, I would love to hear from you, Brenna at thekidcounselor.com. You can say hello. You can ask me a question. You can pose something that's going on with your child and ask me to cover it in an episode. I would love to hear from you. I read every email, so please reach out if you have anything that you want to share. I love y'all. Keep loving your kids. We'll talk again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and to subscribe to our newsletter, please go to www.playtherapyparenting.com.